Welcome to the Postpartum is Forever podcast. My name is Katura Stoltenberg. I am a mother of 2 young men and a postpartum doula. This podcast is dedicated to all mothers and is a place to hear honest, relatable conversations with the intention of helping mothers feel seen, heard, supported, and valued. I believe that postpartum is forever and that sharing our stories is a powerful way that we facilitate connection with ourselves, our children, and our community. Thank you for being here. Today I speak with the lovely Sophie Burch AKA the Mama Coach. Sophie is on a mission to put mental and emotional well-being more on the map in pregnancy, birth, postpartum, and parenting. Sophie has been a mother for 18 years to 4 boys, which include a set of twins. She is also a perinatal therapist, coach, a birth trauma and PND survivor. Her experience has shaped who she is and awakened her to a life of compassion and deep empathy for everyone from preconception through parenting to menopause. Her approach is simple: to allow people to feel heard and held, safe and worthy of love and self-acceptance. Sophie believes that our strength comes from self-compassion, kindness and knowledge, which is her ethos. 2020 saw her launch her book Beyond Birth, a mindful guide for early parenting. This guide is available as a published book on Amazon, as an ebook and audiobook. Further, she has created parent-baby support sessions and a practitioner training course, which I have personally participated in. Sophie is a trainer and team member at Perinatal Mental Health Training, CIC, with leading perinatal expert and author Dr Jane Hanley, and offers online and in-person training, one-to-one therapy and coaching. She has spoken on the mental health expert panel at the Baby Show twice, alongside leading campaigners and doctors. I know you'll get a lot of value from this episode. And of course, please do reach out to myself or Sophie if you would like to share or offer feedback and or benefit further from Sophie's expertise and support. Enjoy the episode. I'd like to welcome Sophie Burch to the podcast. I'm really thrilled to have you here, Sophie. Can you tell the listeners a bit about you, where you are located in the world, and how your family is made up?
Yeah, thank you so much for inviting me. Really, it's a joy to be here. First and foremost, I'm the mum of 4 boys, including twins. So my third pregnancy was twins, or is twins. They range from now 18 years old down to 11. And I discovered motherhood as a bit of a shocker. And I guess we'll talk a little bit about that. But I am now, what I do now is I'm a trained, qualified and accredited hypnotherapist, hypno-CBT therapist. I am a coach. I'm trained in positive psychology coaching, hypnotic coaching, lots of other different psychotherapeutic techniques and tools up my sleeve, around about 35 different tools and techniques that I've trained in, frameworks. I primarily support parents, but these days I've opened my doors to all sorts of people, wonderful people that want to come to me for my help and support, either as a therapist or as a coach. I have specialized in the perinatal period in the past. I'm an author of a book called Beyond Birth, Mindful Early Parenting, and that led me into creating parent support sessions based around emotional well-being and mental health awareness at kind of grassroots level. So the idea there, building bridges really for people where they can't access support, but equally just as a learning tool in terms of learning new skills about themselves that equally support the mental health of baby too, and infancy, which is very important. And learning to put ourselves first as parents, which is not always the default, the majority. And I also train perinatal professionals in mindful early parenting, so that they can go and become mental well-being practitioners and bring beyond birth, or elements of beyond birth, into what they offer in the communities for parents all the way through, really, because as you say in this podcast, you're postnatal for life, right? So these skills that we learn perinatally, either in pregnancy or afterwards, in that first year or two, do stay for life, and they really do make a difference. And the beauty of that is that as we do this ourselves, we model to the babies that we are, taking care of, loving so much. They really do take that on board, and it makes a massive difference for who they are, how they feel about themselves, who they become, and to adults as well. And I see that with my kids. I see how I needed to dig deep and take care of my mental health in the early days, weeks, months, years, of becoming a parent. And I am now seeing my 18-year-old absolutely using those tools and techniques that I've shown him, that he's seen me using, as he goes through he's doing his A-levels now, which is a lot of pressure, and it's amazing to see how he is managing his and coping with his emotional well-being. So that's me in a nutshell. I'm sure there's a lot more to explain, but I'm based in the UK. I'm based on the East Kent coast, but I see people worldwide. So I have clients all over the world that see me. I work online as well as locally. So really, really lucky that I get to do that. I feel very honoured and blessed that I can be here for people globally. And it fascinates me in being able to work with all sorts of different communities and demographics around the world. Because at the end of the day, we're all human, and we bring to the table so many complexities, and everybody is different. Yet at the end of the day, we are struggling in a world that perhaps doesn't feel very welcoming a lot of the time. That it boils down to how our minds and bodies cope with the stress that we experience through our days, and how we were parented ourselves a lot of the time. It really impacts that too.
Yeah, wow, that's a lot.
Yeah.
Glad you didn't keep going, because that's amazing. You have such a broad and wide skill set, and it's no wonder that I felt attracted to you in the first place, and also joined one of your trainings, because I could just see how much you bring to the table and how beautiful your work is, in wanting to really make a difference, not just to mothers, but for whole families. And then, as you
Yeah.
beautifully mentioned, and then would have a flow-on effect to the children of those families, and then the next generation and the next generation. So it's it's actually, when you step back, it's a really big work, and it's a very powerful work, that it can make such an impact. And thank you for doing all of those things. That's just absolutely wonderful. I do have your book here too, so I'm not sure if it will be upside down on the screen.
Oh, thank you for
So
sharing
I
that.
love this book. It's such a great guide, and I love that you bring a lot of practical tools into everything, and you make it very doable in just day-to-day experiences. So yeah, your work is really amazing, and I'm really privileged to have you on. Um,
Thank you so much. Thank you.
So let's get a little bit personal for you then. Take us back to when you first became a mother. How did
Mm.
that postpartum look and feel for you?
It's how do I summarize this? Because we could be here for a while. It's my why. becoming a mother for the first time absolutely is why I now do the work that I do. Starting off really in pregnancy, actually, because I was told that it was very unlikely that I would conceive. I had polycystic ovarian syndrome, and I'd also had some large fibroids removed from my right fallopian tube. I've been told that the scar tissue there would mean that it was unlikely that anything could ever travel down that tube and become a baby in any way, shape, or form. I rarely ovulated, and yeah. So when I met my now husband, explained that to him straight away, and he just said, "Hey, let's just see what happens."
4 children later.
9 months later into the relationship, we are pregnant with Ollie, my number one. And but we weren't living together. He was in London, I was in Brighton. I was working really hard in film production and in a job that was very, very stressful. I was working for some people who were not very happy about the fact that I'd become pregnant. So they were making my life a bit of a misery in my pregnancy. And I knew nothing about mental health. I'd had some issues, some traumas in my past that meant that I was quite a highly sensitive person. What I didn't understand then that I know now is that I had antenatal depression. And when I finally moved in with my now husband after 6.5 months in being pregnant. So I spent the majority of my pregnancy on my own, just trying to manage the day-to-day of being basically bullied in my workplace. And they were forcibly trying to get rid of me, trying to push me out, but I needed to stay to get the money that I was owed and promised. And that was a really, really scary time. Plus, in my head at the time, I didn't feel like I could connect with my baby in pregnancy because I was very afraid of losing him, very, very afraid. And then once I'd moved in with my husband, we had a couple more months together, and then we did an antenatal course through something called the National Childbirth Trust here. Where basically we just met some people and they showed us images of birth and they told us that we should have a natural birth. Showed us what a ventouse is, some forceps. I remember didn't teach me any breathing techniques, didn't really teach me about being relaxed. Although I don't remember that anyway. And so I went into labour thinking I'm going to have a natural labour. And then also my mind was really sort of shifting into gear of, oh my God, you're in a hospital. This is horrendous. What's going on? You're about to lose your baby. And I panicked. So cut a long story short, we had a very traumatic delivery. It was shoulder dystocia, where he ended up in NICU. He was more than 3 minutes resusced, and it was very scary. So my what I was thinking nearly came true. He nearly didn't make it, and it was very traumatizing. We were in the hospital for a while. And I didn't have anybody ask me how I was or if I needed to talk to somebody. Got home with him eventually, and the system was messed up, so we didn't even have anybody come visit us at home for a while. I was just rabbit in the headlights, completely stunned and traumatized, and luckily with a beautiful baby. But I remember everybody around me saying, well, at least you have a healthy baby. You have a healthy baby, so good, that's great. Off you go.
Be grateful.
Yeah. So and of course I'm exceptionally grateful for that. I really understand the empowerment meant behind those words, but lot of misunderstanding how I was. And so I was definitely postnatally depressed, although I masked it very well. Ollie had terrible colic for a long time. He cried a lot, understandably. A lot of cortisol was pumped into that baby's body in antenatally, in pregnancy, and then obviously through that very, very scary birth for both of us. So we had a lot of work to do to connect and to lower the cortisol levels in his body. He was very, very, very tense and scared himself. And actually, luckily, I'd got some training in massage, and so I did actually start to massage him, and then I found a baby massage class, and I went to that and thought, this is amazing. I want to train to do this, and trained straight away because I was in avoidance mode as well at the time. Trained straight away with the International Association of Infant Massage. That's the Vimmel and McClure method. And went out and created a business instantly in baby massage. I was just like, right, I'm going to just keep on going. It was my coping strategy. At the time, I wasn't admitting that I was postnatally depressed. In fact, I didn't know I was. I had birth trauma, but again, didn't know that was a thing. Nobody around me was asking me how I was, and I wasn't checked on at all. Apart from midwife that checked my stitches at one point in time, and after that was it. I'd had to have an episiotomy as well, which was quite significant, the damage that was done after that. But it was just like, off you go, there you go. So I had a whole year of recreating myself, looking like I was throwing myself into motherhood. The good thing about the massage was that I was connecting with all in a way that I couldn't in other ways. And whenever I laid my hands on him and we touched and I breathed him in, I really, really felt a sense of connection. That oxytocin was exactly what we both needed. And by the end of the year, our relationship was good. And I remember looking at him on his first birthday and properly falling in love with him. And it wasn't until then that I had really enabled myself to talk about it. And then I broke down and everybody around me went, you haven't been yourself, but we didn't know how to tell you. And it took a while for me then to seek the help. Well, I went to see the GP, but I had to answer all the questions. I didn't answer honestly because I was terrified they were going to take my baby away from me. So it was 6 months later before I got some CBT, but they'd given me some sertraline, a small dose of sertraline, which is an SSRI. And really, by the time I had the CBT, I was actually feeling a lot better, and I'd really kind of got myself sorted as much as possible, and dug deep into all my training as a therapist at that point in time. So I helped myself more, really connected with a lot of the people in my class, which was very therapeutic. So I was, quite successful in running my businesses, and I was really there for mums and dads and babies, and realized there was just no real follow-on support from birth generally. Even if you'd had a difficult experience, it just really wasn't happening. So I recognized that in my sessions, people were wanting to share, some people were. And then I was also recognizing that not everybody experiences trauma, and that sometimes we have to, keep that to ourselves in groups of people where some don't want to hear it and others can't hear it because it re-traumatizes them. It's very triggering. So I started to look into ways to manage that. And I trained then as a hypnobirthing teacher. And then I also trained as a hypnotherapist as well. So over the years, my business grew, my intentions to support parents, my passion, my mission there was really, really clear. I was just like, I cannot see people go through what I went through. And some. So I made it my work to try and link in with the health professionals that were in my area as well. So, it's just like, hi, I'm here, I'm doing this, and I would really like to signpost people onto you, rather than what we get generally is just speak to your midwife, speak to your GP. You need names, faces. And I started to kind of really build a network where people felt more supported, that we also, connected with other perinatal professionals, like aromatherapists and reflexologists and nutritionists and lots of wonderful people who could support in other ways. So, there was more choice there for everybody. When I had my second baby, Milo, I used hypnobirthing to birth him, and I had a beautiful home birth. I was very lucky, and got the birth that I dreamt of. And that was amazing. It wasn't easy postpartum with him, though. So much came back. So I did actually, because he had reflux, he had silent reflux, and it triggered me hugely. So I found it very, very difficult, even though I had loads of skills and tools at that time to be able to cope better, it was exceptionally hard. And so much of it I felt on my own again. And everybody was like, but look, you got your perfect birth. You got it. You should be firing on all cylinders and, being Mother Earth and all of these things. I'm like, this is really hard. This is so hard. Why is it so hard? This is not meant to be this hard. And then I started to realize that society paints this picture of this perfect mother myth. And even though, I had skills to match into or marry into some of that, I definitely was feeling so detached from all of it too. And the more I worked on myself and the more I trained, the more I was able then to share with others as well. So by the time the twins came along, they were a bit of a shocker. We were not expecting them. I'd lost a baby in between them early on, but it's significant in every way. So we'd stopped trying to have any more. And then it was we were leaving London. We were moving out of London to live in the countryside, and we threw a big party. And evidently that night that we don't even remember, we got blessed with twins.
Wow.
So I feel exceptionally lucky. It wasn't easy though either, and we had a very, very traumatic pregnancy with them. We had twin-to-twin transfusion syndrome, where you could lose one or both babies. And from 18 weeks, we were being scanned every week, and I just remember them saying to me, "You might not have a heartbeat, or one or two next week, so just stay strong." I did refuse a lot of the interventions that they were offering me. I just felt I didn't want to put any more risk into the equation. My body created an additional blood vessel that counterbalanced the blood flow between the twins and the placenta, which is apparently super rare. So by the time we were 28 weeks pregnant, we didn't have twin-to-twin transfusion syndrome anymore. I remember that the consultant was like, we need to get everybody to see this. And loads of people come running into the room, and I'm there like, okay, this is so rare. This is super rare. So yeah, something, I think they called it a AAA or something, blood vessel that my body had grown. So nature stepped in very, very beautifully for me there. But I'm, not at all preparing medical support in that. And there are a lot of occasions where people feel that they have to take the medical interventions, and absolutely, you do what you feel is right for you. So yeah, to kind of summarize, that's that is my journey with being pregnant and parenting, and the reason why I so much need to continue this work supporting others. And this is where Beyond Birth was born, because postpartum, after having the babies were born early anyway, 2 months early into NICU, and we had we had months in NICU as well, and so the effects of the twin-to-twin were there, even though my body had managed to counterbalance things. But we needed significant medical support, and going into the NICU for the second time was really hard, even though I knew that was what was going to happen, and I prepared myself and I'd asked the questions, the consultants. It just threw me completely. It was re-triggering in every way. I cannot express the pain of how I felt having to leave them. I had to leave them in the hospital after 36 hours after giving birth to them and go home, which was a 45-minute drive away, and be mum to my 2 other boys, but just feeling so bereft and so completely separate from the babies that I'd fought to carry into this world for so long. It was very difficult. And again, I had no support, even though I'd asked that if there was going to be some psychological support in the NICU, there wasn't anybody there to help. So that was the real time. But I, at the time, had, preempted that there would be some issues. I had a hypnotherapist that was helping me as well. And I was really pulling it out the bag, all the things that I needed to do, but it still doesn't take away the fact that it is heartbreakingly hard. And also what you see when you're in NICU as well is exceptionally difficult to hold when you're already very triggered yourself. So I had times when most nights where I just couldn't sleep at home, and I would regularly phone the ward to check that they were okay, because if I did fall asleep, I would often have nightmares that they weren't alive anymore, and would race to get back to them in the morning as soon as I dropped my boys off at school and nursery. And there's a lot to that. Because, for years afterwards as well, even though I did my best to be there for my other 2 boys, I couldn't really be there. They lost me for that first year, really. I was just functioning as their mother, just trying to balance these 2 other babies that desperately needed me, that also, once we got them home from the NICU, they had silent reflux as well. So we had that ear-piercing screaming of discomfort that for months, every feed, we'd have to keep them upright for about 20, 30 minutes after every feed. And when you've got 2, it's just so much harder to do that. I put it this way, I went very grey in that first year because I had so little sleep. But to put a spin on this, everything that I experienced and the reasons why I feel like, is what I put into my book. I felt that it's a rite of passage that we understand ourselves at a deeper level when we become parents, and emotionally, that so much comes up for us, no matter how many babies we have, from our past, of how we were parented, of how, what society believes is the right way to parent. Who are we? That transition into parenting every time, managing expectations, our expectations, those of our family, of our loved ones, and others in the community and our work. And so much of it, actually, I learned so much and just piled it into my book. But making it as simple as possible as well, but because understanding that no matter how much you want to learn something new when you're postpartum, you really need it to be very, very simple. So the book has big writing, just because I was like, tired eyes cannot read small words. We have to have big writing.
You've thought of everything. You've thought of every
Not
possible
everything.
hurdle or challenge or roadblock to a family getting that information and those that valuable education, and you've covered it.
I hope so.
I trust you are enjoying this episode. I know that if you are listening to this podcast, you are likely a woman who deeply cares about her mothering practices. I invite you to sign up to my email list found on my website, motherhoodwithkatura.com.au, for semi-regular emails that include blogs, recipes, and information relating to a variety of motherhood topics. If you are pregnant or know someone who is, head over to my website and sign up to receive your free copy of the postpartum checklist and important contacts list. And so that we can get these conversations out to more mothers, I'd be grateful if you could like, share, and review this podcast. It really does make a difference. Back to the episode. I'm sitting nodding and thinking, yeah, each of those experiences are huge. Each and every one of them have their individual unique challenges that are very big, and
Yeah.
just kind of acknowledging that for you, that wow, yeah, you've been through a lot, and
Oh, yeah.
to see you coming out the other side with resilience and courage and determination to want to make a difference in other families' lives. It often is, this kind of work is often birthed out of our own experiences, whether they're negative or positive, but mostly they're usually negative.
I
They
agree.
experiences that were very challenging, and the real desire to make a difference. Um, so yeah, I just find that just fascinating that you've been through all of that, and that really does spur you on to not just make a difference in a small way. You really are putting your whole life's work into this area, and we need people like you. That's amazing. We need more people like you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So many of us struggle, and that's always what sits with me, is that it's not my unique story here. It's my why, but equally a big part of my healing journey has been through well-meaning and through helping others and supporting others in a way that I didn't feel supported myself, and building awareness for others. Now, obviously, that we have a lot of awareness now. Certainly so much more in the last 5-6 years, certainly since the pandemic. We've all had to dig deeper around that anyway, and my heart goes out to anybody giving birth over that time, because that was exceptionally more challenging for so many. But I think you're right. There are a lot of people that find this work. The majority of people that I've trained, there's like more than 200 people worldwide that have done the training, and pretty much everybody has their own story to tell and says, yeah, this is why we feel we need to bring emotional well-being practices and mental health awareness into the lives of parents, starting perinatally. What I find disappointing, and this is where there has been a block in the last few years for me, where I've had to step back a little bit from constantly climbing that mountain, has been that there is a massive educational piece that needs to be done to the public generally around mental health and what that looks like and what it is, and acceptance of that. Until that happens, I feel that the majority of people, for whatever reason, will find it very, very difficult to come to a class like Beyond Birth unless they actually have to. Does that make sense? I feel like there is still a lot of issues around what mental health looks like, or putting yourself first, that prevents people from saying, why wouldn't we take care of our mental health at a really vulnerable time of our lives? Because that's my dream. My mission is to have people saying that the minute they find out they're pregnant, or even before, when you're trying for a baby or even thinking about a baby, say, right, I need to learn some ways to stay calm, to understand when I'm not feeling myself, what I need to do about that, and have these daily practices that help to prevent the mental ill health from setting in. Now it doesn't always do that, but at least it helps you to have an awareness of when it's happening and gives you the courage to reach out for help when you need it. Yeah. And hopefully lots of people then won't need it as much as we see in society now. But we live in a world that just is very blinkered with that. And it does break my heart. It's huge. And it's like, so there are so many wonderful people like ourselves who are really finding this work and wanting to share for all the right reasons, because we don't want people to experience what we did. We know that parents need to be held, heard, seen, and safe. Those are the things. They're just as much as the babies. Parents need that too. But until parents know that for themselves, it's really, really hard to sell that into a community that is just not prepared to listen, or that is listening but says, "No, I'll wait, or I've only got so much money to spend, and I'm going to spend it on something else other than something for my mental health and emotional well-being," because that's really, a lot of what happens too. So yeah, it's like that's where my passions are dying a little, because I feel like I've worked really, really hard over the years to really try to get people to understand the importance of emotional well-being, certainly in the perinatal period, and to kind of celebrate that vulnerability in those moments, and to really flip it and make it into something that helps us feel stronger and more aware and more confident, because we're practicing and taking care of ourselves. But instead what's happening is the opposite. And so I sort of sit back and feel like I've only got enough energy for certain things these days. So we'll see. It's certainly, a lot more awareness around mental health in the postpartum period, and hopefully antenatally too, which is great. But it's one thing having an awareness, it's another thing actually putting it into practice.
So true. I hear your frustration and resonate with that a lot. As you're telling your story, I'm thinking, I know why I like you so much, because we're so similar and we've done so many similar types of trainings. Like, I'm a baby massage instructor, and I'm a massage therapist, and I'm a doula, and I really kind of it made me think when you said about doing the baby massage. There are a couple of things that I thought of. First of all, how insightful of you to be proactive yourself, which is a shame in a way, because unfortunately mothers don't always have the capacity or energy to even think of leaving the front door, never mind to join a class. But I think that was a really big turning point for you and your baby to bond and to connect, and probably a really good reminder to mothers that just simply touching their babies, even if they don't come to a class, is a really, really effective way that they can start to shift some of the melancholy or the frustration or the just kind of a circuit breaker, can't it? And as you said, with oxytocin, you're
Yeah.
receiving it, your baby's receiving it. So even if you don't realize, you are definitely promoting those feel-good hormones. So it's one way that we can make ourselves feel better and connect with our babies without even putting too much effort or no money really into that. But
Yes.
also, I liked when you said, because this is something I can relate to in facilitating the classes. It starts out as a baby massage class. You probably know what I'm going to say. And then
Yep.
it evolves into a mother sharing class. And that's really, I think, the beauty of these classes, is the fact that parents often will put their children first, as we know. So they'll think that they're coming purely for the benefit of the child. But really what they find is that they start to connect better with their babies, with themselves, they're sharing, they're making friendships and connections in the community, and then it has even more benefits. And what you experienced also, which is what I experienced, is that we're learning from the parents and we're all mutually feeding off each other. So even
Yeah.
though we're the facilitator, we're getting just as much out of that class or that circle as they are. And it's just so
Mm-hmm.
therapeutic for everyone.
It really is. Oxytocin, is the most powerful, and really does override the stressor hormones as well. Maybe not the adrenaline, but certainly the cortisols, that are produced. So if you are super stressed, then one of the simplest ways of overcoming that is to connect. If it's not a hug or touch, it's just eye contact and a smile, and or even just thinking about being held by somebody can produce oxytocin. And it's a tremendously powerful and wonderous hormone. We should be thanking our lucky stars that we produce it, really. So lucky we are. And our babies, of course, they don't know any different. That's what they need. And it helps their neural development as well. And effectively, it's like an invisible umbilical cord. They're still attached to us in every way. I mean, even now with an 18-year-old, the thought that my 18-year-old is about to go to university this year is actually breaking my heart. The thought that he's leaving home is, really, really hard to get to grips with, and in re-triggering in a lot of ways. I'm having to work on myself with that. That wasn't expected, but wow, okay, yeah, this is interesting what's coming up here right now. He is finally leaving. Probably be home
We'll be
every
back.
few months, and that's fine too, and that's great. But it's it never stops, and it does feel like that connection is going to be, not severed, but disconnected for a while, that I'm going to have to work hard on maintaining. So, there are ways to deal with that. And I know that as a therapist, so I will be applying those practices regularly so that I feel still connected to him, even if he doesn't care either way. It's fine. But oxytocin is super powerful. And yeah, I mean, my Beyond Birth groups came about through running baby massage classes. The one thing that I chose actively to do, though, was to create a series of sessions that helped with continuity of connection for us all, because it is such a big deal to feel like you've got that continuity of support, as you say, making connections with others in your community, but equally with the facilitator of that class. But within those sessions, when you have sharing sessions, it's very important to recognize that, as I said before, that some things can be really triggering for those that you hadn't known nothing about. It's really, we have to be very careful, very cautious about what we're sharing, especially initially. So with Beyond Birth, for instance, we ask people to journal down their thoughts and feelings. We have chats about general issues, but not the sort of the really nitty-gritty personal ones. So we wouldn't share a birth story, for instance, but we would talk about how we feel when a baby cries. Yeah. But equally to write things down, to get into the practice of journaling and expressing yourself in that way, because you're having a conversation with yourself when you're journaling. It's so very powerful. But then towards, as the group gets to know each other, and everybody perhaps also shares with each other maybe more outside of the session, then we welcome in more open sharing sessions as we go along. So, in a circle environment where people are feeling safe, then it's very useful after people have got to know each other for a while, and there's a lot more kind of trust built and openness and honesty, that then at that point maybe it is time to share a little more and feel held by the compassion and the empathy that comes from that group. Yeah. So we don't dive in straight away with with a traumatizing birth story perhaps, but we definitely, those experiences are really meant to be shared, and we are meant to hold each other in a way that, I've trained in polyvagal theory, for instance, that it's really beautifully connecting and really actually toning good for our vagus nerve to be co-regulating in that way with others, and specifically also for the facilitator of the class. As I said right at the beginning, it was very therapeutic for me to be holding space in that way, that enabled me to really feel like it was shared experience. And I think that that's the beauty of these classes that many parents couldn't understand or consider until they've experienced it for themselves.
Yes, exactly. You just often want them to just come along, to trial a lesson or to trial a class so that they know, because once they're in, they're like, oh yeah, this is pretty good. This feels good.
Yeah.
'Cause
Yeah.
I
I
think
mean,
what I need is to be out in the community and yeah, connect with
that's
others.
it.
Mm.
Yeah. And people don't talk about colic or reflux and how that makes you feel. I mean, my goodness me, it's difficult. It is so difficult.
Oh,
Even if you have the most beautiful birth,
yes.
yeah, then you've got a baby, even just without colic or reflux, just managing the cries and interrupted sleep. The elephant in the room is the lack of sleep, right? So, just
Yeah,
sharing that is
exactly.
so
Yeah.
useful, isn't it?
But I think kind of getting back to the things that you raised about mental health and the way that we
Mm.
view that. Do you think there's still a stigma about mental health in the community?
Mm. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And it's different for every demographic, for
Mm.
every religion. It it really is very different depending on where you live and what your society thinks and feels. Perhaps a little bit more liberal in a city to being out in the countryside. It varies hugely, but I do feel that we still have a great deal of work to do. And this perfect mother myth doesn't help at all. That we're meant to be, uh, amazing mothers, coping exceptionally well, and having a job, or just being able to keep smiling through it all, no matter what you're doing. You're not allowed to shout. You're not allowed to get cross. You can't get angry. Dare you ever get ragey? That's the worst, right?
Yeah.
And it's so
Yeah.
normal. So we have a lot to contend with there. And I think the challenge is to looking at mental health. We cover this a lot in my training. Is that there are so many challenges, um, to people taking care of their mental health as well. So it's very easy to say that when you haven't got the finances, when you have a new baby, that there are other things that are more important to prioritize. But what new parents don't understand is that when you're investing in yourself, you're investing in your baby, and that is the most important thing. Um, a really amazing travel system for baby is only going to get you so far, excuse the pun, in terms of how you feel about yourself. Half the time it's going to stress you out because you can't work out how to fold it down and get it in the back of the car.
That's right.
um, it's so true,
Mm.
you know, but yet everybody invests a lot of money in these things
Mm.
because it's like it's the rite of passage. It's the thing that we do when we get a new baby. Of course, they're very practical, and I agree that some really do save the day in lots of ways, whatever. But it's not going to help in the long run. Imagine if you invested that amount of money into your emotional health. I mean, it's just like,
So
excuse
well.
the pun, but it's a no-brainer to me.
Yes. Yeah.
Really is.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, I think the stigma around mental health is this kind of man up culture that we live in, especially for dads and partners. I think that's a real issue. I tried to include dads and partners in my book, in my training, but we still have a long way to go to generally include dads and partners in understanding, emotional well-being generally, but practicing mental health practices. It's, in the perinatal period, they're just expected to just carry on and hold the fort, and keep on doing the job that they had, if they have it, and off you go. And there's all sorts of things. So I work with so many dads one-to-one who just feel so bereft and defunct, and everything's changed so much, and they feel like they're missing out on so much as well, and too much is expected of them, and it really affects their mental health. But equally, the resentment that then can come from a mum who sees her partner going off and having a normal life, and a big part becoming a mother is grieving the previous life you had. No matter how many times you give birth, you grieve, you go through a sense of loss of who you were before. It is part and parcel of it, but again, unless you're prepared for that, and you can talk about it to people, it builds up on the inside, and that resentment can lead to anger and explosions and feeling like you're not yourself. Why am I thinking this way? Who am I now to be feeling so jealous of my husband who goes out to work and has a normal life? What kind of person am I? That's how it starts, in so many ways. So the stigma then is like, how can I talk to somebody about this, because I feel so shamed about the thoughts that I'm having.
Yeah. And I think backtracking and working out, all these little things along the way, bringing that more into awareness, that when you do have a child, it is going to make your world quite topsy-turvy for a little while. It is going to change your relationship. It is going to change the spontaneity you had, the independence you had, your career. There's so many changes, as we know, with matrescence as well as patrescence now.
Yes.
I think that a lot of couples might think, oh, but we're not depressed. We're not, we don't have mental health issues. And that really isn't the message, is that parenting is hard. It's hard no matter what. And all of us need support, regardless if we've had the great birth, we've got the amazing family support, it raises a lot for us. It raises a lot in terms of who we are, our identity, and how we're going to move in the world for, ongoing after that. So it is, maybe that could be the message that we are promoting more, is the changes, so that, as you said, if these changes start to become disconcerting, unnerving, that there already is some things in place that they're like, oh, okay, I know where this could be heading. Let's have a chat with somebody about it. There's nothing to be ashamed of. It's a hard gig, and even the most perfect situations require us to dig deep when we become parents.
And it's so difficult to do and to think like that when you have been conditioned and shown by the media as well as the society you live in that you're meant to do it alone.
That's what we're working again.
Yeah, we really are.
Yeah,
we really are. Education in antenatally in relationships is, I feel, a non-negotiable, I think. But again, it's not consistent in terms of what you get when you go to antenatal classes. Most of the time, it's very much about how to give birth to a baby, and that is it. And I feel we're really missing a trick, actually. We could bring in. Yes. So my antenatal classes include relationships.
Yes.
And there's questionnaires that you get given, and where you can sit and come together and do something maybe you've never ever done before, and communicate in a way that you've never considered before. That isn't always very comfortable to do either. But equally, I've never had anybody turn around postpartum and go, I wish I hadn't done that. And all of this is born through experience. Obviously, 18 years of being a parent several times over and holding space for thousands of people in pregnancy and postpartum. And it does boil down to the same things at the end of the day, even if everybody's picture is different in terms of what they bring to the table. It's how we manage our stress, how we communicate, honesty, yeah, and expectation, yeah, and those things are, if we can start to recognize that in ourselves, and perhaps where maybe we're not, we're being a bit too hard on ourselves, or maybe we're not communicating in the way that we could do because we're too tired. When you're really tired, the first thing that stops is communication. You bring it in. Again, like I said, elephant in the room is the tiredness, but dare we say we're tired? It's crazy, isn't it? It's like, hang on a minute. Yeah, there is so much, especially in that transformation piece, but it's a beautiful thing too, and we have to recognize that, that this role as parent, let's say role as mother, right, the sake of argument right now, it's hard because you've never done it before. Even if you've done it before, you've never done it with this baby before. You're carrying in all sorts of other things with you. Maybe you are juggling another baby or two as well at the same time. And so your identity is shifting all the time. And so just in that, it's a case of being honest and communicating as best as you can about what's coming up for you all the time. If you feel you can't do that with somebody else, because time is the big issue when it comes to taking care of ourselves, and any mental health practices, one of the biggest excuses is I haven't got the time, right? Is actually to kind of build in things that you can do while you are caring for others, which is why, my new sort of strap line in my business has gone from the Mama Coach to Sophie Nurture You, and it's nurture yourself as you nurture others. Because that's fundamentally what it is. And even if it comes down to just writing down what you're thinking or feeling in the moment so that you can reflect on it later, it's like having that conversation with yourself in the moment that helps you to go, yeah, this is just what's going on in my head. One of the cognitive behavioral exercises we do, one of the best ones, is to write it down, is to get distance from what's going on in your head and to take it out of your head and put it on paper and to get perspective on it, see the bigger picture. It's like, how true is that? How helpful is that for me right now? Is that realistic, or is that my inner critic kicking in, just giving me a really hard time because I'm tired and I'm not feeling in control? Invariably, that's often what it is. Yeah. When it comes to rage and other big emotions like that are, we're meant to feel ashamed of, then if you can't express that to somebody else, then definitely writing it down is a great place to start.
Yeah. Very practical. Yeah. And so powerful. We underestimate these things, just sitting down and writing a few things down, or just spending a bit of extra time on the couch with a cup of tea, or just all of these little things can really help just give us a bit more perspective again.
Yeah. And it takes a minute.
Yeah. We have got time
so
for that.
We do have time. Our minds will tell us we don't, because we're super busy, but we do have time. We always do. It's building new practices, then that's the hard bit. So if you can do it when you have a bit more time, potentially in pregnancy, not saying that's right for everybody at all. If you can start to build these practices in before you've then got armfuls of baby postpartum, then that can be more useful because they're more familiar. But, resistance is strong. When we've been a certain way all our lives, when we're starting, especially when it comes to mental health and these practices, that require us to go a bit deeper inwards, that require us to hold the mirror up and see these parts of ourselves that we don't want to see. The resistance is very strong, and we have to push through that resistance. We have to find that inner parent, that inner compassionate voice with ourselves that says, I know you don't want to do it, but do it anyway, because you're going to feel better as a result of that. That is the practice, effectively. It's learning to parent ourselves.
Yeah, totally. I was just thinking of something I saw on social media this morning, and it's about a mother who walks every day. And she said, this was not a practice I had growing up. So it wasn't a practice to see her family didn't come into their thought processes to go for a walk. So she's sort of forced herself, because she knew that when she had a baby, that would be a good thing. It would cover a lot of, tick a lot of boxes. She'd be outside,
Definitely.
she'd be in nature. She's got her baby with her, the sunshine, and lots of feel-good hormones. And she said, and now I can't not go for a walk every day. It doesn't feel like a chore. It feels like a treat, and it feels like something I must do. And yeah, that was just this morning, and I thought that's really sweet and a really good reminder that we can do these things. We just need to give ourselves a little bit of a push sometimes, and then we realize this is a thing that should be part of our daily practice.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's non-negotiable.
I'm learning to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's a lifetime of learning, isn't it? It really, really is.
It really is.
I saw something on social media as well that was 42 reasons, 42 things to take with you to the grave, and so many of these things were, on reflection, so very important, and things that we really need to learn when we're much younger, so that they make it becomes realistic for us and a non-negotiable, effectively. All the things that you wish you'd heard or done and not done, essentially.
Yeah, I think it's never too late.
Yeah,
our children are always learning from us.
So true. Definitely.
Yes, yeah. So if we can maybe bring up just a couple of practical scenarios for mums that can relate to these specific circumstances. So I was thinking about a mother that's home. It's about 4:00 in the afternoon. Husband's still at work. She's trying to make dinner. She has a 1-year-old and a 4-year-old, and both are crying and calling out to their mum. And of course, it's activating her nervous system. What suggestions or tips would you give to a mother that's feeling like she's about to rupture?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and one that so many will resonate with. I'm sure I definitely do. So there's a couple of things here. Firstly, if you are recognizing that you are triggered more at certain times of the day, like that time that you've just explained so beautifully, then it is important that you preempt that with grounding exercises. That could be just a case of going outside, looking up at the sky, just being mindful of the environment that you're in, seeing the bigger picture, looking at the clouds, just stilling your mind, grounding yourself, even better, earthing yourself if you can. So getting like shoes and socks off and into the ground, or doing a bit of gardening or anything like that. If you can't get outside, then it's important to take some breaths. Coming to breath is really, really useful. So I'm talking about preempting that time before. So before you then go and cook dinner and your kids are going to be hungry, you're tired of a full day of looking after the kids, and just hoping that your partner or husband walks in through the door sooner rather than later because you feel like you're going to explode. So it's preempting that. If you've got trigger times, just taking 10 slow, deep breaths is going to make so much difference and ground your nervous system. So you come from a place of being less triggered. Now, if you haven't remembered to do that, okay, fair enough. In those moments when you notice that you're getting more triggered and you feel you need to say something, say, I notice that I am feeling this. I notice that I am feeling angry right now. The noise is too much for me and I can't cope with it. I notice that I just really feel like I'm not coping very well right now. Yeah. What we're doing with those words, and words are so very powerful, is we're distancing ourselves from the experience. We're calling it out. We're noting it. We're naming it, right? I notice that. Calling it out. It is this emotion. It is this that I'm experiencing. And then you can give yourself the reasons why. And because you've said it out loud, everybody else in the room and you holds that for a moment. It's like, okay, so this is what's going on. Rather than it being all on the inside, bubbling, ready to explode, you've outed it before it has the chance to do that. In that moment, equally, is highly likely that what you really, really need is somebody just to give you a massive hug. You need somebody like your partner to walk in, hold you, and go, it's okay, we got this, right? This is hard. If you can do that for yourself, then that's even better. So why not give yourself a squeeze? Put your hands around, crossover around as if you're giving yourself a hug. Squeeze tight and breathe it out. Those tensions are there for a reason. We need to let go of them. It's there to tell us we need to let go of it. So it's a real lovely somatic practice of either giving yourself a tight squeeze and a hug and imagining that you're being held by somebody, or by placing your hands over your chest, connecting with your heart just for a minute and just going, I'm just holding myself right now. I've got this. I'm okay. This isn't as hard as my mind is telling me it is. It's hard, but I can do this. I really can. And start to think about how you can just minimize the stress for yourself in the next half an hour. Okay, I've got the 10 minutes of this. I've got to be rational minded. I've got another 10 minutes of that. Then I'm going to put the kids in the bath. And I'm doing all of that. And it's all fine because it's part of my role. And that's okay. And then when I'm done, I'm going to get myself some 5 minutes when I can. And I'm going to breathe. I'm going to ground. I'm going to feel held. I'm going to grab my partner and make them hold me when they come in through the door. So all of these things, it's like, you need to release what's going on before it explodes. If you explode, that's what we call the rupture. Know that so many people are exploding with you around the world. Everybody's in this boat, right? We're all in this boat together. If you explode, recognize it, see it for what it is. Okay, my nervous system is in the red right now. Repair the rupture with yourself first. Again, holding, breathing, maybe some tears, because tears contain cortisol. Let the tears flow. It is okay for you to cry in front of your children. It really is. In fact, it's actually valuable for them to see. So if you can hold something, maybe the worktop, just hold it, grip it, take some breaths, hand on the heart, shake it out. Yeah, these somatic practices are so useful. Until you feel a little calmer, come to breath if you can as well. Use words like, I am okay, I'm safe. And then you go to your kids. Sorry, mummy exploded. I'm so sorry that I shouted. I'm so sorry that I said these things. I noticed that I was feeling too stressed and I needed to calm down. So I'm doing that now. And I love you very much. And you do that through touch and kisses. Okay. The power in the rupture repair is so huge because they're learning in that moment that it's okay sometimes to explode, to be angry, to be ragey, and that there are ways to make it better. And usually it's through connection and communication and a whole heap of love and compassion. So there are 3 different sort of ways that you can manage that stages. Ideally, we want to try and ground and feel safe in our nervous system before the trigger time. if you can do that. But if you can't, and you do end up exploding, forgive yourself for that. Repair the rupture with yourself. Do not, if you can help it, allow the spiraling to go off about the shame and how bad you are as a parent, because you are not. You're just coping to the best of your abilities. And that's always a very human thing to do. Yeah, hope that helps.
Oh, that was amazing. Yeah. Thank you for stepping us through that. And I'm glad that you continued to, if there was the rupture, which we're only human and it will happen at some point, and it may happen many times, but really trying to minimize or reduce that mum guilt that tends to sort of raise its ugly head very quickly, doesn't it?
It does.
And that inner critic, like you were saying, just that remembering we're human, and even remembering that this is actually a learning experience for your child as well, I think can kind of flip the way we view real human emotions. You know, we don't need to run away and run into our bedroom and hide in the corner and cry. Within reason, it's okay for our children to see that in us, because we're mirroring to them how we work through some of these inevitable interactions that we have in our daily connection with people. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. There's a balance, and we're aiming for the middle ground. Yeah. In parenting, you know, there's so many misconceptions around what gentle parenting looks like. For instance, gentle parenting does not mean permissive parenting. It's about being compassionate to yourself. So many people misunderstand that. And self-compassion requires you to be the parent to yourself, because when you are triggered, you are that inner child. You are the child in that moment. You are exploding as like a tantruming child, right? What does a tantruming child need? It needs somebody to just hold space, to keep it safe, to feel into that moment, and just to be there to hold the energy that is happening. And then once that energy has calmed down, then you can actually hold, and you can use soothing words, forgiveness. You can use words that you need to hear, because words are all powerful as well. And if it's not, you know, from somebody else, then we need to be able to do that with ourselves. Yeah, so important that we forgive ourselves. Yeah, because permissive parenting actually causes a lot of damage too, where you are always saying yes and you're never showing your emotion. And it's very difficult for a child then to go out into the world and see this happening all around them that they've never borne witness to at home. That's, you know, we have to consider that. But equally, authoritative parenting too is, is on the other end of the spectrum and does just as much damage, if not more. So we have to try and find that compassionate voice and do that for ourselves just as much as we do for our children.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I think that could be another full episode on the different styles of parenting. Yeah, but it really does just come back to knowing that our own inherent value as a human is important along with our child's, and that it is like of most of us come into parenting ill prepared for the realities, and our expectations are very high, and we don't have a manual. We may not have many resources. We may not have a support network. So it's really tough, and just keep cutting ourselves a little bit of slack, because it is a really tough job, and we're not designed to be doing this individually in nuclear families in our home, where mostly, you know, one parent has most of the responsibility of the care work. It's very unnatural.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I think it is important to add in there, though, that if you are, you know, having to repair ruptures daily, i.e., you know, it's getting a lot, you're exploding a lot, then that is a wonderful red flag. And I say wonderful because these are opportunities for us to say, okay, I'm not coping and I need help.
Yep.
And at that point, it is important when you've pushed through and you've been as compassionate as you can, and you are still unable to find the inner calm to forgive yourself. Please do reach out to go and see a professional. It is so important because it's never how we imagine it to be. So many people that come to me say, I wish I'd come to you sooner. And it feels so much better now. I've spoken to you that I now have some skills. I now have some tools to be able to cope better. Why did I wait so long? I don't understand why I waited so long before I did this.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Yeah. No, you're not scary, Sophie.
Yeah.
It actually, yeah,
I think the idea of therapy for so many is terrifying though.
I
Yeah.
think so. I think because as we've sort of touched on, we are in a society that makes us feel like if we're not coping, that's a bad thing, or that something is really wrong with us, or that we're weak, or we just yeah, it's not a very good culture of just getting on with it, and um you don't want to have to acknowledge that you're not coping, or that you're finding this all a bit tough, because everyone else seems to be doing it really well, don't they? And they're not. They're doing probably the same as what we are, but again, they're also closing that off and suppressing that inside of them. So we don't know that. And this is where social media can be a little bit tricky to navigate, because we are seeing those perfect 5 seconds that family had, and we're not seeing the rest of the picture.
Absolutely, I agree. Yeah. It's important to remind ourselves of that all the time.
Yeah,
because
for sure.
we're human again, and comparison is part of being human. But that is, that comes with a pinch of salt, every time. It is, I believe, very much a non-negotiable skill that we should all be learning is to distance ourselves from what we see on social media, and take it with a pinch of salt every time. And it's going to help how we feel about ourselves so much more.
Yeah.
Really is.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. I think we could talk for hours. So thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing so honestly and generously. There has been so many pearls of wisdom in our conversation, and I think that there will be a lot of families that will relate to a lot of the things that you've said, and will find reassurance, and hopefully some strategies as well, and also just the reminder that it's okay to seek help, that it's okay to go to somebody outside of your family unit to say, can you give me a hand? I'm not really having a great day, or I'm not coping well this week. I just need a break. Maybe would you look after my child for an hour or two so I can go out for a walk by myself? Or, it's just kind of helping us to see that we are designed to be interdependent. We do need others. And we need to co-regulate. That's not just something that we do as a child. That's a continual process. We don't magically become a certain age and now we're very independent and don't need anybody. Yeah. And just trying to change that way of thinking. Because
Exactly that.
yeah.
Exactly that. Yeah. I mean, I think what the biggest takeaway from our conversation today really needs to be around oxytocin boosting in so many ways, because it solves so much. If you can wake up in the morning and say, right, how can I boost my oxytocin today?
Yeah.
And work on that. You're gonna be feeling a lot better, a lot more quickly. Just say that. Yeah.
But thank you so much. That was just an abundance of little treasures that I know I've benefited from. And how can people find you and work with you?
So you can find me through Beyond Birth. That's Beyond Birth Guide, all with underscores on Instagram, and then you can click through. You find the website, find all the information there. So that's the guide and the training. And the other side of that is Sophie _ Nurture You, and my website is Nurture You, and yeah, you can work with me either with therapy or coaching. I can see you for anxiety. I can see you for antenatal training, postpartum. I can see you for habit breaking. I can see you for, if you need coaching into, you feel a bit stuck and you just feel like you want to get on with life and you want to start feeling a little bit more excited and free from the past, then, I can definitely help with that as well. There's nothing more rewarding than recognizing, than seeing somebody working with somebody who starts to see things differently, to change their mindset. And hypnotherapy is, often, but, misunderstood so much. And I'm trained in kind of non-theory state hypnosis, which is very much like daydreaming. So it's it's very impactful. We use suggestion, we use metaphor, it's fun in so many ways, and we really kind of mentally rehearse either letting go of the past or being more present, or stepping into a future version of ourselves that we'd really like to be, realistically, of course. If you want to imagine winning the lottery, then fine, but we're talking about just maybe just coping better, or being more confident, or there's so many things. And I love to work with a variety of people. And as I say, I see mums and dads, as well as people in business who feel that they'd like to set up on their own or do bigger, better things. So lots of variety there. But you can work with me one-to-one. Or if you're a practitioner working with people perinatally, then do look me up for the Beyond Birth training as well. I keep it as affordable as I possibly can, and you can do that in your own time online. And we have a Beyond Birth collective of people who occasionally are in there saying, "Hi, this is what we do," and it's so lovely. It always brings so much warmth to my heart. Getting feedback on the book as well. Just, you can get the book through Amazon. I believe you can get that wherever you are in the world as well. So it's Beyond Birth, a mindful guide to early parenting. So perhaps a good time to start. Yeah, absolutely.
It's a beautiful book.
And I think it applies to everybody, whether or not you're perinatal or not. There's so much in there that especially for practitioners, if you're running groups, you're facilitating groups in this time, then that book is going to be really useful for you in your own right. All these practices make a big difference, and then when you feel aligned to that yourself, then you're more confident to share it with others too.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I've experienced that, and I can certainly vouch for the fact that it's really life skills, isn't it? And
Definitely.
it's not a sign of not coping or falling behind or missing the mark. It's more, I think, maybe a good reframe on some of these things is just personal development. And maybe it's just flipping the way we think of it. We would put time into ourselves usually before our children come along, and it shouldn't be any different as we have our children and as we grow. And your book and your training is so nurturing, so soulful, and you give very generously of your time and your experience and expertise. So I highly recommend that. And it doesn't matter where you live in the world. I'm in Australia and I've still managed to access you very easily.
Thank you.
Yeah, it was really easy to do from the other side of the world. So I'll put all that.
It's an honor.
Yeah, it'll all be there in the show notes. And would you like to add anything else as kind of final pearls of wisdom at the end of the conversation for families away with them?
Thank you. I think that the most important thing to remember is, just as you are taking care of your baby, you need exactly the same as they do. You need to be held, heard, seen, and safe. Okay? And maybe I add in accepted and feeling like you belong, right? So that big transition, whatever it is, however it looks for you, it's important to remember those things that as you're putting that time into your baby, and caring for them, you do the same for yourselves. Really important.
Yes, and if your motivation is the baby, well, you can rest assured that putting time into yourself is also benefiting your baby, if that's the thing that you need to hear.
Yes.
Yes. So I know we could go off on another tangent, so I'm aware of sort of ending now, but I'm so looking forward to having more conversations with you. And thank you again for making the time to be on this podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Pleasure. I hope that you enjoyed this episode and that it offered something helpful to your own mothering experience. If you are a pregnant woman or know someone who is, head over to my website to receive your free copy of the postpartum checklist and contact list. And if you'd like to be better prepared for your postpartum, both practically and mentally, purchase the Peaceful Postpartum ebook, a 52-page interactive guide on what you need to know and what matters most in postpartum. And so that we can get these conversations out to more mothers, I'd be grateful if you could like, share, and review this podcast, and we'll see you next time.